Hello and peace be with all the good people out there. How are you guys doing? I hope you guys are doing well. It's me, Sammy. First and foremost, I wanted to say that I've started with Tigrinya lessons. So Tigrinya lessons have begun. The first video has not been uploaded yet. It should be uploaded by tomorrow. I hope that it benefits all of us who want to learn Tigrinya, who want to either learn or improve with Tigrinya. It's a very necessary language to learn. A large number of people speak Tigrinya, and it's what we have left of Ge'ez. Well, a person could learn to speak Ge'ez as well, but Ge'ez is not a language that we use in daily speech. So Tigrinya could help us talk with people of many different tribes inside and outside Eritrea. Tigrinya and Amharic are languages I encourage people to learn, starting with myself, because of communication. You see, one thing that as an Eritrean, or as someone who's half Eritrean, which makes me an Eritrean, I don't like to use that term. That's my slave name. I don't want to use that term. So someone who comes from north of the Mereb, the River Mereb, our predecessors, or those who are older than we are, the generation before ours, they speak Amharic because they were taught Amharic in schools. They can write books in Amharic if they wanted to. Unfortunately, we didn't learn Amharic. But they can communicate with Ethiopians from any tribe if they come from the country of Ethiopia. It's very useful. You know, I mean, if you're going to learn English, you might as well learn Amharic as well, because that's something that will connect you to the homeland. Secondly, someone apparently my little short video that I that I made. It was the video that included my thoughts about Eritrea falling into a civil war. One or two people, one basically implied, one person said, I don't know what I'm talking about. Another person says, I don't know Eritrea. That's not true. I have done my research about Eritrea. I think you're lying to yourself. And for the one who says that I don't know what I'm talking about, I think you're deluded. The reason is because how can Eritrea not fall into a civil war when you have people like the Afar who have had grievances since day one? Since day one, they have had grievances, and they've taken up arms. They've taken up arms since day one. Since Eritrea's first or second birthday after the revolution, they took up arms. And they've had grievances that have been growing and getting worse and stronger since. How are you going to tell me that there won't be a civil war when you have people that are from two crazily opposing sides, from opposite sides of the spectrum, and don't know how to come together and talk about things like Higdef, pro-Higdef and anti-Higdef? Like for, if you want an example, Brigade Nahamadu and the Higdef people. They can't sit at a table. Or if the person that is not part of Brigade Nahamadu but disagrees with the government, they can't sit at a table with people who are pro-Higdef. If you give someone with Higdef a weapon, he may use it. So he may use it if he can. They did in Israel. So-called Zionist territory, you know, I'm not going to call it Israel. So, you know, in Palestine, that's what they did. In occupied Palestine, that's what people were killed. So you want to tell me that there's not going to be a civil war? Imagine if Eritrea becomes like what Ethiopia is now. You think that it's just a smooth? Why don't you live there? Do you live there? Are you commenting from Eritrea? Or are you commenting from somewhere else in Europe or Canada or North America or Australia or some part of Africa or the Middle East? Where are you commenting from? For those of you that are Eritreans living in the diaspora, commenting and talking and commenting and talking, but your master Isaias won't let you do these things over there. You can defend him over there, but you don't have internet there the way that you do in other places. You don't have the freedoms and education and resources that you have in Ethiopia. You don't have that in Eritrea. Don't tell me that it's because of sanctions and whatever else. That Iran has sanctions, but they still have a system. Iran has sanctions. Syria used to have sanctions when their old corrupt regime was in power. You know, they had sanctions are there, but they could still facilitate. What makes Eritrea any different? You think I'm here to play games? Your pride will not get you anywhere in the world. You're living in a world where there's more than what's just in your imagination. You can imagine what you want to imagine. Imagine, make whatever, stories you want to make, pretend and play make-believe and play whatever, children play. But the reality, when it comes to your face, what are you going to do to it? What are you going to do against it? Nothing. I don't know how someone can be a grown man or grown woman and yet be so foolish. Embarrassingly foolish. So we spoke about how Eritrea was unhappy with Italy and why. And we spoke about the Italian oppression in Eritrea and their aggression towards Eritreans and towards the natives, the apartheid, and we mentioned the response by individuals like Bahta Haggos and I forgot Blatta. Blatta, by the way, is refers to like a high position, I believe, in military authority. That's what Blatta means, if I'm not mistaken. So Blatta Gebra እግዚአብሔር Gilai or Gilai, Blatta Gebra እግዚአብሔር Gilai or Gilai. It's in English. So he responded. We mentioned the name, I believe, is Zarai. Not, I was saying Zarai. It's Zarai Daras. He killed people, Italians in Rome. We don't condone that. We don't support that. It was just the mention of that was only to along the topic of the response by Eritreans to Italian aggression. We don't. Those of us who are just and fair and intellectuals, we don't condone violence. We support self-defense, but not aggression. So him killing innocent people, even if they're Italian, is not supported. I don't know. Maybe Higdef supports these kinds of things, but not the average person. So talk to the dictators about these kinds of crimes, terrorist acts, and things. Talk to the dictators. So now we approached and unhappy with Ethiopia. We're going to see what the Eritrean relationship was with Ethiopia from the historical perspective. This is a history text. We're going by the text titled "The Historical Orbit." There's no need for me to. It's just me. I have printed pages in front of me. The Historical Orbit of Eritrea's Agony by Dr. Alemseged Abbay, who is an author, a Tigrayan author, and someone who is very well versed in the history of, at least the history of Eritrea and Tigray. Very well versed in that history. I believe he's well versed in Ethiopian history as well. He's very well versed in a lot of history. Very, very intelligent man. He's a man who thinks outside the box. He's a thinker. He's one of the thinkers who come from our homeland. It's all our homeland. Even if he's from Tigray, it's all land that is we call home. It's the motherland. Unhappy with Ethiopia. Let's begin. Before anything, I begin in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. I praise and I glorify him as he ought to be praised and glorified. Unhappy with Ethiopia. Since the forces of modernity that colonialism introduced north of the River Mereb did not disrupt tradition, there was no social mobilization among the various ethnic and religious groups that could have birthed a distinct Eritrean collective identity. There was no social mobilization among the various ethnic and religious groups that could have birthed a distinct Eritrean collective identity. This made the political fate of Eritrea manipulable when political actors used and abused primordial identities. We'll see what he means. Thus, during both the British trusteeship, when the British had control of Eritrea for those 11 years from 1941 until 1951, if I'm not mistaken, during both the British trusteeship, which lasted until 1952, and the federal era, which followed until 1962, a deadly security dilemma beclouded Eritrea. A deadly security dilemma beclouded Eritrea. Distrust among the political actors contributed to the rise of a fear of the future. First, there were squabbles between the Muslim and Christian elites from the geographically, economically, and religiously divided communities. If anyone wants to say, no, we never had any such divisions, we never had, go to Walde Yesus's book. If you don't like Walde Yesus's book, go to another historical source. Go to any historical source on the history of the ELF or the history of the Eritrean Revolution. Go to the history, you will find that there were disagreements and issues between regions and religions and political views. I'm telling you now. So don't blame the author. Don't blame me. Do whatever you want. You can blame whoever you want to blame. It doesn't affect me to the least. Anyway, there were squabbles between the Muslim and Christian elites from the geographically, economically, and religiously divided communities, led by Abdul Qadir Kabira, Ali Musa Radai, Ibrahim Sultan, Burhanu Ahmedin, and others. Most of the Muslims who came primarily from the pastoralist lowlands were apprehensive about joining Ethiopia for fear of being dominated by the Christian others. So they were afraid of being dominated by the Christian others. That's what happened with the Muslims. I believe that was the case. They were afraid of being dominated by a Christian authority. Not because I don't believe it was, I don't know what was on their minds. The Christian authority, based on what I understand from my family, the Christian authority was hostile towards Muslims. That was the issue. I can give you a story. There's a place called Ona. Ona, I believe, is where a lot of Blaine were killed, people from my tribe. What happened was, and this may be related to Ona or another place besides Ona. So what happened was, so the Blaine, we're divided between Muslims and Catholics mainly. So the Muslims and Catholics, everyone gets along. No one has hatred on account of religion among the Blaine. If you're Blaine, you're Blaine. That's it. There is no hatred among them. They're tolerant of each other. They acknowledge each other. So the Blaine, the two major clans that I know of are Beit Tawqi and Beit Tarqi or Tarqi. Beit Tawqi is mainly Muslim, or if not all Muslim, and Beit Tarqi or Tarqi is Catholic. Tarqi is the Senhit, found in Senhit on the eastern side of Bogos or Karan, and the Tawqi are on the west. But they get along. They speak the same language. Maybe some differences here and there in some things, but they're the same people generally, with two different histories. Maybe we can talk about this subject another time. But so what happened was, Haile Selassie's people or his group, they wanted to talk to the Muslim Eritreans. in the masjid, in the mosque. We call it masjid. Masjid is masjid, place where you prostrate. So what happened was that the Catholics said, we have to be there too. They said, if they're going to be there, we have to be there too. We have to be there too, meaning they don't want to leave the Muslims alone to any kind of negative result. They're looking out for the Muslims. It's not because, if they're doing it, we got to be involved too. No, not like that. So no, they said, we only want to speak with the Muslims. So the Catholics ended up joining in any case, but they shot them all to death. It was just it was death by firing squad in the masjid, if I'm not mistaken. That was, I think, what happened in Una, or it happened somewhere else. But that happened with the Blen. This is what he used to do, Haile Selassie. Okay, so there was a fear of being dominated by the Christian others. Christian others. There's quotation marks, because that's what I guess was said by them. But the sedentary and agrarian Kabasa Christians, Tigrinyas, wanted to be reunited with their mother. He uses the quotation marks, Mother Ethiopia. However, neither the Muslim nor the Christian leaders acted in unison. Whereas with the support of Pakistan and Italy, Ibrahim Sultan, Abdul Qadir Kabira, and Birhanu Ahmedin wanted Eritrea to be independent. Ali Radai wanted the Western province to split and join the Sudan. So with the support of Pakistan and Italy, Ibrahim Sultan, Abdul Qadir Kabira, and Birhanu Ahmedin wanted Eritrea to be independent. Ali Radai wanted the Western province, the western part of Eritrea, to be part of the Sudan, to join the Sudan. Similarly, the Christians were divided on the nature of unity with Ethiopia. Tadla Bayru, along with the Orthodox Church Ekalon, such as Abune Marcos, wanted an unconditional unity with Ethiopia. Unconditional unity, meaning we want to be united with Ethiopia, unionists. Unconditionally. Waldeab and the Ras Tessema family were federalists or conditional unionists who wanted the merger of Eritrea and Tigray, northern Ethiopia, to form a political unit within the Ethiopian Empire, enjoying autonomy with their own language. So those were the conditional unionists. So there was Waldeab Walde Mariam and Ras Tessema. They were conditional unionists, federalists, or conditional unionists who wanted the merger of Eritrea and Tigray to form a political unit within the Ethiopian Empire, enjoying autonomy with their language, Tigrinya, as an academic and working language. Such multilateral divisions and intercommunal tensions, which do not necessarily threaten democratic societies, had a debilitating impact on Eritrea. Let's finish this section. We're almost done, and we'll end. Interesting content. Eritrea had no democratic experience, and the culture of tolerance was conspicuous only by its absence. Political discourses thus took personal lines. For instance, the war of words between the unionist Tedla Bayru and the federalist Waldeab Walde Mariam veered toward the primordial. By referring to Waldeab's Tigrayan parentage, so I guess he had Tigrayan parentage, Waldeab Walde Mariam. I don't know if both his parents were Tigrayan or one of them, but he had roots in Tigray, which is not abnormal for Eritreans, by the way. Many Eritreans have origins in Tigray, naturally, organically. So by referring to Waldeab's Tigrayan parentage, Tedla Bayru, crudely said that Waldeab had no business in the Eritrean political landscape. Waldeab retorted, wittily implying that Tedla's Eritrean pedigree stops at 50 years, in apparent reference to the claim of his Nigerian descent, Tedla Bairu's Nigerian descent. So Walde Ab got back. There are people who have told me I'm half Syrian. They said your mother is Eritrean, so you don't count. This is only to dismiss my words. That's why they do that. They want to dismiss what they don't want to hear. If you're confident, then you can hear anything if you're confident. But your lack of confidence, which ironically you want to show confidence, but ironically it backfires. You end up showing weakness. Doesn't work when you want to shut people up, like your queen Isaias. They should put a crown on her. Why not? They should put a crown on her. The latter's mixed racial stock, meaning Tedla Bairu, the latter's mixed racial stock with darker Negroid forebears led to the rumor that Tedla is not really an Eritrean. The 7 attempts on Walde Ab's life by paid assassins are testimonies to the zero-sum nature of the political game. Many political actors such as Abdul Qadir Kabire were not as lucky as Walde Ab. They were killed. So, Tedla not being an Eritrean, the source for that is further developments regarding annulment of election to Assembly of Atto Walde Mariam. Amkonuslate Asmara, the Department of State, Washington, D.C., May 15th, 1953, number 126. That's Tedla's not really being an Eritrean, is Tedla Bairu elected first chief executive of Eritrea. Consulate as Asmara to the Department of State, Washington, D.C., September 3rd, 1952. And then that's number 25 in that source. And then the next one, which talks about the 7 attempts on Walde Mariam's life being by paid assassins, being testimonies to this zero-sum nature of the political game. The source for that is the further developments regarding annulment of election to Assembly of Atto Walde Mariam, Consulate Asmara to the Department of State, Washington, D.C., May 15th, 1953, number 126. Finally, when the UN General Assembly adopted Resolution 390, A.V., on December 2nd, 1950, federating Eritrea with Ethiopia, most Eritreans, including the Muslim leaders, settled and accepted the resolution wholeheartedly. However, as early as 1951, some Eritreans, such as Ibrahim Sultan, believed that the threat of annexation was hanging over them. By the way, they reluctantly joined Ethiopia, but Ethiopia started being aggressive. I wonder what would have happened if Ethiopia was not aggressive. Would the people who initially were skeptical and suspicious, would they have continued with Ethiopia, or would they have still wanted independence? That's something that asks my curiosity. So some Eritreans, as Ibrahim Sultan, believed that the threat of annexation was hanging over them, to the U.S. position that it is far too early, to be preoccupied with the concern that the Ethiopians are trying to sabotage the federation. That's the quote. So, it is far too early to be preoccupied with the concern that the Ethiopians are trying to sabotage the federation. And the quote ends. Ibrahim Sultan replied that every true Eritrean is fearful and apprehensive when he sees the endless chain of Amharic, and then there's sick written after it, SIC, which means that there might be a mistake there, or there's a mistake there. I didn't catch it. When he sees the endless chain of Amharic, or maybe Amhara, that's what was supposed to be said. Amhara, of Amharic functionaries coming to Asmara on confidential missions, the nature of which one can well surmise. So he said, every true Eritrean is fearful and apprehensive when he sees the endless chain of Amharic, likely meaning Amhara, functionaries coming to Asmara on confidential missions, the nature of which one can well surmise. Source for that is Conversation with Ibrahim Sultan, Consulate Asmara to the Department of State, Washington, D.C., November 8th, 1951, number 83. Underlying the policy of the Amhara, the U.S. Consul in Asmara, Edward W. Mulcahy, further reported that there was a dislike at times amounting to outright hatred among all Eritreans. There was a dislike at times accounting to outright hatred among all Eritreans. So this is the same source that I mentioned before, the Conversation with Ibrahim Sultan, Consulate Asmara to the Department of State, Washington, D.C., November 8th, 1951, number 83. So Amara, and then the following, the footnote which comes after what I just mentioned about the hatred among all Eritreans is so it mentions Amara or the Amhara are the second most numerous ethnic group in Ethiopia, with the coming of Menelik of Shoa, central Ethiopia, to power at the turn of the 20th century. They became a socially and politically dominant group in Ethiopia. Stripped of its innocence, their language, Amharic became a tool of oppression. So Amharic, stripped of its innocence, it became a tool of oppression. I like that this was included. Stripped of its innocence, their language, Amharic, became a tool of oppression, because the language has no, what sin does it have? What sin does it bear? What mistake does it bear? What crime does it carry? It did not do anything wrong, but they used it as a tool of oppression. So the dislike amongst Eritreans, I believe, is dislike towards this Amhara chauvinism. That's the dislike that it's talking about. I don't believe it's talking about dislike based on the context. It doesn't mean dislike amongst Eritreans, meaning between them. No, dislike for the Amhara chauvinism. That's what the dislike was for. Next time we're going to start talking about the federal era. Between, of course, which talks about the federation between Eritrea and Ethiopia. That's what we'll talk about next time. Until next time, take care, keep safe. For those of you who are, have crazy comments, you need to read the Quran, read the Bible, read morality. You need morality. You need to revisit what is right and what is wrong. Abandon your pride, because you've been consumed by pride. You're consumed by ego, by pride. If you get consumed by this, you're going to destroy. You will have destroyed yourself. You can rebuild. You can always rebuild, even after destruction. But you will destroy yourself from within. This is not healthy, nor is it normal. I'm not gaslighting you. I'm telling you that this is not healthy. You're gonna like a dictator who has a million human rights crimes against humanity, a million crimes against humanity against him, all of them legitimate. Anyways, keep safe. Peace be with you, and I'll see you next time.